Hi guys, I'm Shmi and welcome to what is actually the start of the N24 adventure with the new M4 CS. Now this video is actually embargoed until just after the weekend, but we have just landed in Frankfurt following the launch of the new BMW 8 Series in Milan, and now we're going to be driving over with the new car to the Nurburgring Nordschleife ahead of this weekend. Now there are 4 of them lined up here, the M4 CS slotting into the line above the M4 Competition, but beneath the M4 GTS, so almost bang on both in terms of price point and in terms of what the car is all about. So the cars we have here are in the grey and in the San Marino blue. We're going to be driving in one of the grey cars. These are the sort of exclusive colours for this version of the M4. It costs £90,000 in the UK, but let's take a little look around this one, the San Marino blue, because it is such a lovely colour. So it uses a lot of the learnings from the GTS. It has a new suspension system, some aerodynamic parts that you'll recognise, so the carbon fibre front lip splitter down here, new wheels, these cars fitted with ceramic brakes. Nice to see that car just being unlocked. It's got the carbon ducktail spoiler as well at the rear. Obviously, take a look at the grey car. Those carbon components stand out slightly more. But we've literally just arrived at Frankfurt Airport, ready to drive this car now over towards the Nurburgring. On the inside, just come and have a look in here. You've got Alcantara, leather, different materials. The Alcantara door part's quite nice. The raw, lightweight door panels, you can see there's no sort of extra material wear not needed. Now up here, the straight 6, 3 litre, turbocharged, 460 PS in this car, up from 450 in the Competition, 430 in the normal car, but beneath that of the GTS. But again, we're going to be jumping in any moment and jumping on the road, so whistle stop introduction before I throw in my luggage to tell you a little bit more about the car on the road. Before we go though, the other cars here, the M3 30-year edition, to celebrate 30 years of the M3 since the E30, and also alongside that the M2 with performance parts as well as the M decals as well, all around the car, but new sort of carbon components that can be installed. Onto the M2 and a new M exhaust system, so that stood out a fair bit there too, and the M3 getting ready to go too, and everybody's basically shortly going to roll out. But I've got the car here, or the key here, sorry, for the car, for the lime rock grey car that we're going to be driving. So let's jump in. We've had a driver swap. It is my turn to drive now. So let's fire it up. You get a little bit more noise in here than you do in the standard car. The exhaust is a bit louder, but obviously you still have the internal kind of speaker system as well, which is hotly discussed. But let's pop it into drive, pull away in the sort of completely standard mode. Obviously you've got the 7-speed M DCT, slightly reworked in this car, so it's got a little bit of a new sort of setup to it. To be a bit more towards the sportier end than even the regular M4. But we're going straight out onto the Autobahn, so most of the drive from here to the Nurburgring is actually on Autobahn, and we're actually immediately in de-restricted roads as well. And it's picked up speed really, really nicely. We're up to 170, 180, and I've just sort of given a gentle press on the throttle. So even in the kind of standard driving modes, or standard comfort setup, there's a lot of response to it. You've got the M adaptive suspension and a number of other M sort of configurable components that are all standard on the CS. So although the CS is a more expensive car, it comes with a lot more standard from a sort of creature comfort point of view. You've got the sound system, you've got the navigation, you've got lots of sort of options you probably are going to end up buying, so that sort of takes the normal M4 up more towards this price point. Unlike the GTS, you've got the back seat still, although you don't have the roll cage. But if we start going through the different modes, down here we can put everything into Sport or Sport Plus. So we've got throttle response, we've got the adaptive suspension, we can put into Sport, and we've got the steering as well, all variable and adaptive and configurable depending how you'd like to have it in the car. Obviously you turn traction off, but we don't need to do that on the motorway. We'll hopefully get towards a sort of countryside road in a little bit, but for now just sort of cruising, taking the car in, learning a little bit more about it. Some more sort of things to talk about: the tyres, Michelin Sport Cup 2, so stickier rubber. That means a Nurburgring time, the Nordschleife time for this car is 7 minutes and 38 seconds, which is 22 seconds quicker than the regular M4 managed. That's quite a sizable chunk.
Off to the right in 3 kilometres.
3 kilometres until we go off. Navigation seems to work fine. So I'm not sure of the regular GTS time, but back out into de-restricted, let's just drop some gears a little bit. In fact, let's put the gearbox in a more sporty mode. Here we go. Hear a little bit of noise out of it. And off we go. big kick on the gear change there. A lot of power. Up to 200 kilometers an hour already. Quite a lot of noise. It's very visceral. You also get that kind of lift-off noise too. Yeah, okay, not bad. Now, I was also just saying about the performance. 0 to 100 kilometers an hour, 62 miles an hour is 3.9 seconds. Which is obviously slightly down from the standard 4.2 and the regular M4. Top speed is 174 miles per hour. Downshift noise is good, it's very quick, the MDCT. Ride comfort in this kind of environment, even in the sport mode, very, very gentle. Obviously, I have turned the steering wheel a grand total of a mere handful of degrees, so I'm not going to be able to tell you very much about that yet. As we come off the motorway into a slip road here, head down. In the most violent setting, the gearbox is very, very aggressive, and that's obviously configurable. You can change an awful lot of things, and you have M1 and M2, the M dynamic modes, which you can pre-configure and have set up, you know, for how you want them for your optimal kind of driving. But this car is more track focused obviously than the standard car or the competition car, but less so than the GTS. It's that balance between kind of road legal car that you can take to the track, a nice amount of power that you can actually drive it on the road without running yourself into sort of silly trouble. Obviously it still goes exceptionally quickly, 174 miles an hour is no shortage. But let's see if we can find some slightly nicer roads to enjoy driving on. Here we go then, a little bit of countryside and some room to play as we get a little bit nearer towards the Nurburgring. So I think one of the things that I'm feeling about this car is that the M4 to me, when it came out, it was the replacement obviously to the E92 M3, but it felt more like an M6. It felt more like a Grand Tourer, a little bit more toned down in terms of its boisterousness, whereas this adds that a little bit more of that character back. It's a little bit shoutier, it's a little bit more barky. Obviously this particular car is quite special, it's limited, we don't know an exact number for it, but there aren't going to be very many of them. They won't be sort of mass producing the car, even though it is a series production vehicle. I guess it depends how many of them get ordered. But just driving around in the nice countryside roads, when you're up towards the top of the rev range, there is a lot of noise. Put your foot down and away the car goes. Pulls away, I guess I might have expected it to be a touch faster, but 460 horsepower. It feels comfortable still, it's still quite refined and quiet when you're driving it gently. Turns in quite nicely, you know, it has those kind of GTS characteristics through the suspension that just tighten and sharpen it all up, just a tiny touch. You do lose some things, so it's only single zone climate control, I noticed, but we're being fussy if we complain about that. Going around the corners, nice little bit of twist here. Good turn in. You can feel it wants to sort of play around a little bit. Definitely notice, just like with the M4, the sort of surge in the power towards the top. You get just a sort of little bit more of it coming at you as you get to the top of the rev range. Off you go. And the steering has a weight to it, you know. In sport mode right now, we could go up again with this button to Sport Plus. Get even a touch sort of heavier. It has a sort of solid feel. You can feel that you're sort of pressing against it to get the turn into position, although obviously it's nice to position. So it feels kind of driving it that it takes, you know, the M4 and it does make it a little bit more exciting, which I think is something the car needed when, you know, you sort of looked at it, or certainly from my experience, and you may or may not know that a while back I ran one as a sort of, I guess, short-term tester from BMW for a while, so I had an M4 for a couple of months to get to know it and drive it. Just need to do a little bit more driving to see what it's about. When you turn it up to Sport Plus though, you can feel it is more responsive, so the throttle mapping is significantly sharper and quicker, and there's also what seems like a little bit more noise out of it too. And some burbles, nice burbles on the overrun there. might be slightly childish, but who doesn't love a good noise from an exhaust system of a proper sports car? And that's what this is. You know, it's 30,000 more than the M4, but hey, it's 30,000 less than the M4 GTS, which of course was well and truly sold out as well. So compared to that relative, you're getting quite a package for a fairly reasonable amount of money overall. Well, we've made it to the Nurburgring. Now, the Press Accreditation Centre is right behind me, so that's my next stop to bring you the coverage of the weekend, which presumably you will have seen prior to this video, so this is all a little bit backwards. Please excuse me for that, but while we're here, let's take a little bit of further sort of look around the interior of the M4 CS. Now, we know what the dashboard looks like from the M4. I'm sure you've seen this before. Speedometer, rev counter towards the right, you get digital displays in the center. So if you are down here controlling the various different configurable aspects of the car, when you press the buttons, you see those on that central display down at the bottom. If I'm just pressing through the buttons, you can sort of see on the screen what's coming up. MDM on the traction there, and the gearbox control would show up on this side. Steering wheel, you've got those M buttons, the M dynamic mode, M1 and M2 over here. Paddles obviously on the back of the steering wheel. Lots of things we are used to and familiar with. One thing I quite like is that kind of CS logo on the dashboard, so the Alcantara, but the way that's shaped is really quite nice. The door cards, which are this, it's almost kind of like, it feels like a recyclable kind of material with Alcantara pads, and the door pulls as well with the M stripe, which is quite neat for closing the doors. Now, it doesn't have an armrest per se. I mean, this kind of counts as an armrest, but it's lost the storage compartment that you used to have there. And the USB port has moved to here. Obviously, weight saving. Got to get the car lighter. It's 32 kilos lighter than a standard M4 before it. So everything else more or less we know. Apologise for the noise of the air conditioning. Obviously it is very hot right now. It says it's only 23.5 degrees, but it feels a little bit more, it's boiling. But let me just shut the car off for a second. Keyless, normal BMW key here. I've left the gearbox in neutral, which you shouldn't do, but the handbrake's on. Normally you'd put it into first gear to switch it off. But let's actually start it up just to do that into first. Now off. Then it puts it into park on the 7-speed gearbox. So if we jump out, then you can see that in the sunshine. I'll just quickly come around the car a little bit more. Carbon fibre roof, which is really rather nice to go with the gurney flap lip spoiler at the back, which kind of shoots up to the air for downforce. You can see the colour in a bit more sunshine than we had earlier as well right now. The lime rock grey. It's kind of primer-esque, which isn't my #1 choice, but it is what it is. This is new as well, by the way, new bonnet with a scoop, or I should call it a vent for airflow out of the car back there. But outside of that and the other things I mentioned earlier, it's very much the M4 we know. Obviously the new wheels with the optional ceramics, I think I talked about those earlier, but everything else with the sort of wide arches and things that we know and well from the popularity of the regular M4 just now. CS designation and a little bit more excitement to drive to. Actually, new exhaust tips. Straight down there, you can see that immediately in the carbon diffuser, which is quite neat. So, fun drive, good to experience the car. Driving it over here to the Nurburgring. We're surrounded by BMWs everywhere right now. There, whole line up there. Big BMW presence at this year's N24. And of course, do go check out some of the other videos that I've shot of this year's event that by this point are probably live on the internet, or if not, they're coming very soon. A big thanks to BMW for allowing me this opportunity straight after seeing the 8 Series in Italy to come and drive the M4 CS from Frankfurt up to the Nurburgring. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up for there. Awesome car, great fun driving it. Hope I've given you a little insight to what it's like to drive in the new M4 CS. Anyway, that's it guys. I'll catch up with you again very soon. Cheers!